Well, good morning, everyone. Do I jump up and down? Do I sulk? That's great. Thanks very much. The reason I've intervened with all of these happy conversations is we are on quite a time scale. My name's Anthony Climpson. I'm Employment and Tourism Manager at New Forest. Anyone know where the New Forest is? One person. Our marketing and communications is brilliant. It's a funny little place full of trees and ponies, a lost little world of forgotten England, which people are now dreaming of when they go on holiday between Bournemouth and Southampton on the south coast of England. And for your sins, you will have about 40 minutes of me talking about our experiences, but hopefully in such a way that will engage you in telling me about some of your problems and how we might work together in this 40 minutes to start to put a few dots on your I's and T's on your crosses. I have to say, Alan's just joined us. I was really impressed, Alan, with what... No, seriously, I was really impressed with the story that you told today about where you've got as a nation in telling your story. And in a real short space of time, I was really impressed. So well done to Northern Ireland Tourist Board. And that's not just because they paid for my flight and my breakfast and my lunch. Anyway, I wish it was. I've been a destination manager. I fell in love with tourism about 30 years ago. I've been in the public and private sector, but only in the public sector because tourism, in terms of destination management, it's really the only place you can be. There is no private sector approach that can possibly deal with the complexity of destination management. Please, come on in. One of the things, I've learned many things in those 30 years. I tell you what, this is the last lot. Oh. Okay, please, there's a couple over here. There's a couple of seats down here. There's another one there. And there's one over the back. Okay, one here, one there. Okay. Okay. What? Oh, sorry, yeah. I've got to hand my phone over. It's making a noise. Right. Okay. We'll have another go. Hello. My name's Anthony Climpson. I'm Employment and Tourism Manager in the New Forest. And we've now got about 38 minutes to go on a little journey where I hope to share some of my experiences as a destination manager of 30 years, which will help you as businesses and professionals in the tourism industry to better understand the idea of co-opetition. In your brochure, it actually said competition. It's actually co-opetition. And so what I'm going to really be talking about are the things that I've learned in that 30 years. And they're all about the complexities of all of the relationships that there are in the business of creating a great visitor experience. Everything from the weather, the landscape, the attitude of the local newsagent, the road system, the sewer system, the quality of the food, the attitude of you as providers. All of these things make up the visitor experience, and that's a really complicated game, and I'm sure as professionals you all know that already, so I don't need to explain that. But the things that I've learnt in that period of time is that the only things that really matter, apart from the quality of what you do as individuals, is the quality of the relationships and networks that you and your partners and your businesses create to actually establish and create great visitor experiences. The other thing that I'm not a very intelligent person, I'm a fun person. I would say I sort of wobbled around in the lower margins of my classes at school, not just because I played around, but because I wasn't the brightest tool in the box in an academic sense. But the one thing I always understood was that common sense is actually quite a sensible commodity to have. And one of the most important things I've learned in 30 years is that common sense, creating common networks, will create common benefit. And if we've got this complex thing called tourism, then common benefit is what we're all after. The other thing that we're always talking about in tourism particularly is innovation. And for me, innovation isn't about inventing anything. In fact, I've not invented anything. What I do a lot of is steal other people's ideas and embellish them in my own way to work for me at a local level. So for me, innovation isn't about being a mother of invention. It's more about joining up the dots that are already there. And that sits neatly with the idea of networking. And also, the other thing I think is really important, in the time of the 30 years I've been around, big was big and powerful at one time when I first started. Now, big is not necessarily powerful. In fact, small can be very big in the digital age. And you can have micro businesses in a little farm somewhere tucked away in Northern Ireland who can be global brands. And so it's really interesting that in the 30 years I've been around, from big being powerful, small can now be very big and big can get stuck. So I'd just like to leave you with that thought. The other thing, before I wade into my slides, that I'd just like to say is I'm really impressed, as I said, about the NITB approach. Leadership, passion and collaboration. Those three words, for me, sum up the whole thing that we're about and the whole thing we should continue to be about and the thing that we need to be about in the future. And co-opetition, just to give you an idea of what I mean, I think most of you have probably worked out by now what co-opetition is, but co-opetition, in the way that I'll be using it today, is the dynamic energy that's released in a mix of collaboration and competition. I think Alan mentioned it, just because, and I think it was mentioned on some of the video clips, just because you're in a competitive world doesn't mean you can't cooperate. In fact, if you cooperate and you are in a competitive world with each other, even if you've got the same products, the one thing I can guarantee that will happen, and the one thing I've learnt in the New Forest, is that the quality of what you offer will go like this. The quality of your visitor offer, because you'll learn so much more by working with your colleagues, by working with your competitors. And for Northern Ireland, or a destination within Northern Ireland, or a B&B within Northern Ireland, your competition isn't in Northern Ireland. Your competition is in the globe. And therefore, it's really important that you work together to create that economy of scale that allows you to bring that innovation, the joining up of the dots, out, which will then unlock quality, which will then create great visitor experiences, and then you will move into the realms of the economics of visitor happiness, which is really the subject of what I'm going to just quickly talk you through. I've been given about 30 minutes to talk. I could probably talk for 30 days. So you're very lucky that I've been time limited. I'm going to try and make that a little shorter than 30 minutes so that we can have some questions and answers, or should I say some discussion. Because I don't know what you want, and the best way of me learning what you want is me give you a little bit of stuff about what I have in my little bag, and you can ask questions of me in a way that maybe I can try and provide some answers for you. Okay, so we're all happy with that? I'm also happy to be interrupted, but not too often, so that I don't get through. But if someone has something that's really burning, stick your hand up and we'll talk about it. But there is a slot of about a quarter of an hour, at least at the end, for chat. Okay? We all happy with that? Great. Okay, so common sense. In the New Forest, there are lots of oak trees, and they've been around for a long, long time. In fact, the New Forest is not new at all. It was not even new when William the Conqueror created his new hunting area, which is where the name comes from. And for a number of years, acorns, green acorns, drop in the autumn. And because the New Forest is really poor geologically, the agriculture is really more an animal culture. There wasn't a lot grown except on the river valleys. So most of it was about living off of animals. And there were a lot of ponies, a lot of deer. William brought some more deer over from France. And a lot of cattle. And that's really the culture of how people survived in the New Forest way back in previous millennia. But one of the real problems was that the green acorns that dropped in the autumn were poisonous to cattle and to ponies, and it created colic and killed them. So they came up with a real common sense thing, which was actually pigs love green acorns and it doesn't hurt them at all. So we have a law. William created a law way back in 1079 which said, in the autumn, let the pigs out, eat the green acorns so that the animals don't get damaged. Simple common sense, and that is a great way to start what I'm trying to tell you about, which is most things are really common sense, most things are really simple, and if we just put our minds to it, we can solve things. And indeed, I was really impressed with Ricky and the stuff he's doing in Portrush. He is doing the economics of visitor happiness. He is doing collaboration in a great way, and it was a wonderful little clip there that I thought was really motivating. So well done to Ricky. And the other thing that's really good about it is if we do this really well, we all make more money. The visitors are happy. So the economics of visitor happiness. I always get ribbed for the little bylines I like to make. Living with the enemy, ? Making new friends. Little bylines. They each tell a little story very simply and allow people to understand what's going on in your head, and they can choose to work with you or not. I also love quotes, and I play a lot of music. I'm in a band, and I probably only have one musical hero really, although J.S. Bach goes quite close, and so do a lot of classical composers. But a guy called Frank Zappa came up with a quote which I love, and I like to remind myself endlessly that basically if I'm not open-minded, I'm dead. And at 62 years old, I still believe I've got so much to learn. And one of the things that keeps me happy is the fact that I don't know anything much, and that every day I can find something new to learn. So that little guy is desperately trying to not only make use of his parachute, but keep his mind open at the same time. And whilst we're on quotes, and whilst we're talking about great visitor experiences, I have another quote. I'm not sure this guy is particularly a hero, but he's a hero of a lot of people. But when we come to customer experience, this guy knows what he's talking about as well. And that is that the opposite of love is not hate. They're both each ends of a passionate stick. The real killer is indifference. And if I really want to annoy my wife or one of my staff, I ignore them. And I pretend they don't exist, and it hurts, and it burns. And one of the things that a lot of us in tourism do, sometimes without realizing it, sometimes whilst we're realizing it, is ignoring customers. Customers are like children. They want attention. And we all know this is true because we're all customers, and we all know how annoying it is when we don't get attention, particularly if we paid for it. So I love this quote in a customer care sort of context. I think it absolutely sums everything up. So this is just real simple common sense. I want to take you through it. I think you can all read. Anyone who can't read? Anyone who's blind? And I meant that nicely. I didn't mean that badly. So we can all read that. Because sometimes when I talk through this, it sounds a bit boring, but really it's a simple common sense thing, and that means that we all know that if visitors know what they're up to before they get here, and you help them on their way, they're in a much better place to enjoy what it is you want to give them. So they tend to be happier visitors. The great thing about happier visitors is they also tend to understand a lot more, spend a lot more money, behave better, and enjoy a better overall experience whilst they're with you or in your destination or your area. So, where do I point this there? So a better overall experience means that ultimately, during their stay, visitors are much more likely to respect and connect. One of the things we have in the forest is that we have an awful lot of people who live there, who've retired there, who've bought their bit of green and pleasant land, and the last thing they want to do is share it with any blinking visitors. Bloody visitors, clogging up the roads, queuing in the shops, drive me mad. And everyone who is alive and human and on this planet knows that the one thing we don't like are people from another tribe, particularly if they come from Wolverhampton or even from London. We don't like them. Go and park somewhere else. Keep out of my area. I don't like you. In the New Forest, nearly, I would suggest, something like 2/3 of our population aren't economically active. They have private incomes or they're doing something else. They don't like visitors. And so one of the really important things about the economics of visitor happiness is understanding that if we really want people to look after this sensitive place, have a good time, spend a lot more money, we've got to keep them happy. And we keep them happy by providing them with what they need. You'll also see that slowly but surely we're getting visitor, environment, resident and business in most of these little phrases and comments. And the reason that I came up with the idea of the verb model was it was a rebrand of the Vice model. The Vice model was the idea of tourism, or good tourism, is a balance between the needs of visitors, the industry, the community, and the environment. But I was asked by Visit England to chair their Wise Growth, their sustainability action planning group from the recent strategy, and a rebrand, we thought, after 4 or 5, 6, 7 years of the Vice model, a rebrand was in order, and because it was about action, we thought we'd rebrand it the verb model, because verb is a word that describes words for action. So we now come up with the visitor, the environment, the resident, and the business. And the reason we've rebranded actually isn't that sort of rather patronizing comment I've just made. It's actually much more about the fact that if you're a member of the community, it's easy to be invisible. If you're a resident, you know you're a resident. Or similarly, if you're in the industry, you could be anybody. But if you're a business, you know you're a business. So we think the verb model works even better. So keeping on the same track then, they're getting more from the place that they are visiting. And if visitors who get more from the place that they are visiting, they're therefore much more likely to invest in it. We talk about money, but there's a really important feature that we've all talked about but sometimes forget, and that is the emotional thing about investment. If you make an effort, people make an effort back. So the emotional and the financial engagement of visitors is really important. That also goes to suggest that if they do that, then the emotional and financial needs of you, of your culture, of your place, of your environment, your residents and your businesses are much more likely to be met if visitors are happy. It's all common sense. And happy visitors are also much more likely to be less demanding on the public purse. One of the main problems I've got is persuading the politicians at New Forest District Council to keep on giving me money to spend on tourism. And they can never understand what I really do. The only way I can really explain to them what I do is by not doing it for a couple of years and seeing what a mess is created in the back of it. And therefore, a set of circumstances where we can persuade politicians to understand that if we create great visitor experiences, it costs them less money, is also an important feature of the mantra of the economics of visitor happiness. The other thing that's really, really important is ultimately we all spend loads and loads of money on marketing. If we adopt the principle of the economics of visitor happiness, as we are starting to do in a big way in the New Forest, the one thing that is amazing that happens in the digital age is ultimately you probably won't have to do any marketing. The visitors will do it for you. And the really great thing about visitors who do it for you, particularly visitors who are matched to the brand values of the offer that you want to make, is that not only do they go off and do it for you, but they target people like themselves in the telling of the story. I was at Marrakesh recently. Alan's already been bored to death about the fact that I was in Marrakesh recently. Because one of the other great features of holiday taking that I've always been fascinated by is we've talked about the visitor experience, and that's really important at the time. But the really big and important thing for a holiday taking person, particularly if you're like me, is I can go home and bore everyone rigid about all of the great things I've done that they haven't. And so one of the great features of holiday taking for me that we don't use enough is the show-off factor. And if we can provide things for people to show off about, we talked about the Titanic in the video recently, people want to go home and tell people about that. And that is the other feature that's really important about the economics of visitor happiness. Not only do they go and review websites and talk about stuff, they actually passionately want to show off about what they've had. And that is the most powerful marketing of all. So if we're really, really clever, and if we work together to collaborate and create the economics of visitor happiness at a local level, we probably don't have to do a lot of marketing in the digital age. People will do it for us. And that's got to be a great way around the whole problem of marketing spend. Alan talked about clustering around a destination. And ultimately, the verb model and the verb approach is really simply getting all of the key lumps of stakeholders, the visitors themselves, the people who care for the environment. We have a national park in the New Forest. We have a thing called the Court of the Verderers. And the Court of the Verderers is the second oldest running English court in the land. It's been running since 1342 continuously, and the Court of the Verderers operate the commoning regime, which is what the cattle and the ponies wandering around the forest is all about. And they are almost fascist in their protection of the right of commoners to operate cattle and ponies. And they do that systematically at the expense of everything else. And 15 years ago, they were going to ban cycling on the New Forest. Ban it, because it got in the way of the animals. And yet the forest was labyrinthed by 150 miles of gravel track for timber extraction. So there's no environmental damage at all. So one of the really important features of the verb model is dealing with people like the verderers is really very challenging. And I'm sure you all have your local examples of people who are trying to stop you doing bits of what you want to do to provide a great visitor experience. In the New Forest, it's the verderers. So one of the most important things that you must do whenever you collaborate with anybody is to tell them you care about what they want to do, not fight them. Collaboration, I'm good at fighting, and I'm quite often criticised for being a bit aggressive. I would prefer to call it assertive, not aggressive, and I certainly would hate the idea of being aggressive. I was a very good boxer as a kid, but one of the problems I had as a boxer was that I had to wait for someone to hit me first before I'd fight back, which isn't a great feature in a boxer. So, clustering around a destination to create total collaboration, providing great visitor experiences. The verb approach seeks to bring the 4 key components of tourism, the visitor, the environment, the resident, and the business, together to understand that the mutual benefit of working together to create great visitor experience is good for everyone. It's good for the quality of life, it's great for jobs, it's great for selling engineering products. Having a great brand value in a tourism sense can do all sorts of things that you wouldn't believe were possible in a direct sense, but there are loads of indirect benefits. And by bringing people together in a sense of collaboration and creating the principles of wise growth means that people start to understand they each have a piece of the jigsaw. And if together we can start to work out what the picture needs to be, people can put the pieces of the jigsaw in the right place to create that picture. So the verb approach is just a very simple way of taking the complexity of tourism and creating a systematic approach to it to allow people to get a picture of what they must do, where they must do it. This slide's a bit complicated, but basically in the New Forest we have, you can see, can we all see visitor, environment, resident, business? We have a tourism association to represent businesses. We have a brand new forest campaign, which is a sort of a discount card really, for residents. We have a Greenleaf tourism scheme to protect the environment and create all sorts of ecological support mechanisms for the place and its culture. And we have a visitor stewardship program to explain to visitors why it's important to do this, why it's important to do that, why the ponies are wandering around, why you mustn't feed them, why you should slow down and not drive around at anything over 40 miles an hour, because the likelihood with no fences, we might knock a few ponies over, and that's not great. We have a destination marketing and management service and a partnership between New Forest Tourism Association and ourselves. And those all work together, and they all feed down into a standard action planning process. But the most important feature of that thing, this model here, isn't the management process. It's the fact that you have a representative structure to allow collaboration, not just amongst the sector groups, but within each sector, the visitor, the environment, resident, and business. I think, and as I understand it, all of these things will be stuck on the NITB website, so you can download them. But that's a really simple model. It's very easy for anyone to use, whether you're a parish council, whether you're a group of B&Bs, doesn't really matter. You can apply this principle and the principles of economics of visitor happiness to whatever you want to do. And just as another little quote that I just in the context of what I've just been talking about that I saw the other day was a guy from George Frederick Watts, who's an artist. I was speaking at a conference, he's now dead, but he had a little tile of a quote that he made, and it said, "Study the past, live in the present, and work for the future." And that's a lovely quote, because if we could all do that, we could all be remarkably successful. We have 4 integrated programs. I'm not going to really go through them. If you're interested, I'm very happy to provide you details of the background, but basically that's just an embellishment of what I just said just now. We've got visitor stewardship, Greenleaf and local distinctiveness. We have the brand new forest campaign and the marketing and product development. So just to conclude, that's a bit of a rush through the idea of the economics of visitor happiness. I hope we can discuss some of the principles in a minute. You're only as strong as your weakest link. Everybody and everything is connected in making a great visitor experience. The visitor experience supports the brand values. The brand values are communicated at no cost by happy visitors. And that's the best value management and marketing you'll ever find anywhere. One of the things about collaboration, which is really tough, because as you can tell, I'm quite an excitable guy, and one of the things I always have a problem with is allowing other people to share their ideas with me. And I think if we're all enthusiastic and honest with ourselves, we all probably feel the same way. So in terms of collaboration, I just want to leave 6 thoughts with you about what makes great collaboration. Can-do thinking. Not, I've got a bloke working for me who I inherited, who is oh, we can't do that. Oh, what about the problems here? Oh, no, we can't. That is just such a penny in the bottom. And one of the things I always feel like doing in a meeting is walking around just punching him, because he is just so negative. But you can't do that, of course, can you? But can-do thinking. Quality number 1. Quality number 2 is be a collaborator yourself. Be that role model. And if you do that, other people will start to trust you, and they'll start to trust themselves to do the same thing. Collaborate openly. it's fine. It's good to do so. Have creative confidence. It's sort of like the can-do mentality, really, but just be creatively confident. Try things out. The other thing, which I'm not brilliant at doing, because I love the creative side, and I have to be honest with myself, I'm not brilliant. I'm not a brilliant finisher. One of the things my staff hate about me is by the time we've got halfway through a great idea, in terms of iterating it, I'm on to the next idea. And so you've got to finish things out. Luckily, I do have some good staff who do a lot of the finishing for me, and occasionally I do manage to finish things myself. But finishing is really important. And the other thing that I do an awful lot of, and I've been in an awful lot of trouble for doing over the years, is leading beyond my authority. We have problems with broadband in the New Forest, and the politicians, I guess this is being recorded, so I better be careful what I say here. But our politicians thought that broadband really was this newfangled concept of communication, which was really only about downloading games and things, at home, and it really was just, like the telephone, but a little cleverer. And that really we didn't need to invest in it, and it was really problematic getting all of these cables all over the place because of all the planning problems. And so basically we don't really want to do broadband. I, having been told that that was the case, went ahead and organised a huge public meeting to talk about what we were going to do about getting good broadband. Now, if I'd have been a good little boy, I wouldn't have done that because I was told politically not to do it. So lead beyond your authority. Push the boundaries. And finally, the thing I love, bearing in mind I said what I said about my boxing skills, I've always enjoyed sport. Collaboration is a contact sport. It's not a spectator sport. For those that want to sit around looking at things, collaboration's not for you. You need to get in there, you need to get down and dirty, and you need to say what you think. Now, with that little thought, and on the basis that we have now just about a quarter of an hour for discussions, I wonder if we could spend the first 2 minutes in pairs, okay, in pairs, just writing down what collaboration means to you. Okay? Oh, you're all looking very bored. Are we okay with that? Pairs, quickly, 2 minutes. What does collaboration mean to you? List it down on a list. Right. Yep. Right, okay. How have we done? How are we? What do we reckon? Did everyone do it? What? So let's just, we could either play the collaboration game and talk about what you've got, or we could take questions and answers. Which do you favour? Play the collaboration game? Yeah? What are the qualities of collaboration for your... someone shout some stuff out. Sharing. Partnership. Trust. Sorry? Empathetic. Brilliant. Wow. It's a clever word. Sharing. That is a really brilliant one, because ultimately the big thing that happens to me every day, every year, I'm pretty old, so it's happened a lot, and I'm sure there are other examples around the room, is each year I have to do more for less, right? So one of the great features of collaboration is you can do so much more for less. I should be preparing for Confex, big conference exhibition, and in the past I've had to do all the work. The really great thing is all the bloody hoteliers are doing it this time round, because we've got collaboration going. So they're doing all of the hard work because I've refused to. Because anyone who's in the public sector here? Oh, it's a pain, isn't it? Everyone expects you to do everything, right? It's always your fault, right? Yeah, I know. So they're all busily putting photographs together, sticking stands together, getting bottles of New Forest water and Burley New Forest fudge and the photographs stuck on the panels and everything. It's great fun. So doing much, much more with much, much less is probably one of the most important features of collaboration. There's another one no one's mentioned yet, but it's sort of the same. Another one? Share. This is the one. This is this idea that for a tiny little individual input, if you add all of those inputs together, the reach is so much bigger. Try sharing just things like a weekly tweet amongst a load of businesses and then tweeting it to each of your followers. The reach is amazing. The thing about that, though, is you've got to trust people. But, another one. Any more?
Working together to people's strengths.
One of the great things about collaboration with different strengths is what a pain in the neck it would be if we had a collaborating team of me multiplied by 10. We'd probably all go around in circles. There'd be a lot of talking and a lot of excitement. But how boring would that be, and how one-dimensional would that be? The other thing is, we've said tourism's a really complicated process. So if you're going to collaborate, you need loads of diverse skills and strengths. You need quiet people. You need noisy people. You need good marketeers. So on top of that, the other thing about the visitor experience is, even in one little village, different things in the village that are required to make the complete visitor experience of that village work, huge. And not only that, the village down the road is always different. And the thing that I've always been fascinated about, when you talk about quality and you have a tourist board saying we've got to have quality, keep it consistent. In the New Forest, if you get out of bed and you bang your head on an oak beam, it's part of the visitor experience, right? If you get out of bed and bang your head on a beam in London, it's a health and safety issue. Now, what does that say to you? That says to you that it's not all the same, is it, wherever you are? In fact, the whole thing about tourism that I love most passionately is everything's different. And if it wasn't different, why the hell would we travel anywhere? So the really important thing that I think the message there is the diversity of input in a collaborative act. The more diversity you have and the more different ideas that you have going into the pot, the far better the all-round experience, the 360-degreeness will be of the whole process, whether it be marketing, whether it be quality, whether it be sorting out the roads, whether it be making that stroppy blinking newsagent be friendly to all your visitors when they go and pick their newspaper up. All of these things are about that. So, any more? The good thing about this is we're capturing all of this, okay? And the other interesting thing is it'll be interesting to see what the next workshop comes up with, won't it? I hope it'll all be the same because it's common sense. Okay. Yeah, the leadership thing is really, really important. In fact, I've got my little note here to do the leadership thing, but the leadership thing is really important. And the really important thing about leadership is everyone can lead. You don't have to have one leader. You know, there's this weird idea, I think it comes from fighting wars or something, that there is a sort of hierarchy. I'm reading a book at the moment, The Railway Man. It's a film. It's about a bloke who got stuck on the Siam-Burma Railway when Singapore was captured by the Japanese. And he had a real thing about the hierarchy. And I think hierarchies are really a thing of the past. Leadership by everybody is possible in today's age. We can all lead. We can all play our part. And the thing about playing our part, one of the things that is really, really important is everyone gets to own a piece of the action. You know, there's nothing worse than sitting there being told to do something you don't want to do or you don't feel part of. Isn't that right? You don't like it, but the second thing about it that's really important is you don't do anything about it, you just ignore it. Because apart from that, you want it to fail, don't you? Because someone's bloody well told you to do it. So the point about leadership is all of us can be leaders. We can all play our part at particular times, and that plays the diversity strength that we were talking about just now. Okay. Any other ones? Achievable benefits. Oh, this is a smart objective, isn't it, this one? Yeah? Measure it. Yeah. I'm not great at measuring it, but I sit around in our team meetings saying, look, what gets measured gets done. Right? And that's true. So it is, what you really mean is common sense in setting your goals, making sure that you can actually do them, because if you set a goal you can't do, it's really depressing. Is that the point?
Well, it's more to motivate people to actually get involved in collaboration if they can see where it's going to get them.
Right, okay. Yep. And the other thing about that is, I'm sort of bought into a mantra of a training guy recently, which is, I heard the extra mile today quite a bit. There was a few comments about go the extra mile. One of the things about going the extra mile is it's not possible. You can't go an extra mile. It's too bloody far, isn't it, an extra mile? If you think about it, I can't go an extra mile. I've got all the other things to do, you know? Everyone wants to. So, how about going the extra inch? No, I'm serious. Serious point. Because by going the extra inch, we can do it. I can go an extra inch. Can't go an extra mile. No, I'm not doing that. But I can go an extra inch. And if everyone went an extra inch, it's more than a mile, isn't it? Collectively. So it's a great point. Absolutely spot on. The really important thing is, I often, in the past, used to shoot, you know. But one of the things I'd say about targeting is that sometimes if you don't shoot for the moon, you won't even get halfway. So I think there's a yin and a yang there. I think it's a really important point. But one of the things I quite often find is that basically, quite often, we never quite achieve what we really want to achieve. So if we just over-aim a little bit, we might drop in much further up the mark than we would if we aimed a bit lower. So I think that the point is well made, and I think, again, like a lot of things in life, it's about a judgment. Most of the things I do, I haven't got a clue what the answer is, really, if I was honest. I go into planning committees and argue for a development. In the New Forest, you're not allowed to have any development. And I'll go in and I'll say to, when it's all getting a bit dodgy and the politicians are looking at each other and the planning officer said, refuse, I say, Madam Chairman, could I just say that no one in this room knows what's going to happen if this planning application goes through? No one knows what's going to happen. The only way we'll ever know what's going to happen is to do it. It's true though, isn't it? And, Madam Chairman, I wonder if any member here wants to be the person who made that judgment negatively. We have a place called Limewood. It's got a national reputation. It won AA Small Hotel of the Year this last year. And the building footprint that we got through planning committee 8 years ago was 250% over the accepted scale in terms of planning policy. Yeah? 250% over what is accepted in the plan. We managed to get it through after about 4 years of battling. We got it through. It's just won Small AA Hotel of the Year. Now you find a politician who doesn't think it's a brilliant place. It employs loads of local people. It's created a massive following in local produce. It supports about 8 or 9 farms around the New Forest. You try and find a politician who doesn't want to support it now. In fact, most of them want me to invite them up there. Any more? Yeah.
Speed with which you can move forward because of the shared learning and experience, so you don't have to keep making the same mistakes because you learn from your other partners.
That's a brilliant point. That's a really brilliant point. That's absolutely so good. One of the great problems of being old is you quite often find yourself making the same mistake a few years later because you've forgotten about it. So the point about the fact that the collective knowledge means you can avoid the pitfalls made by others without having to go down the pitfall yourself is a major opportunity in collaboration. Brilliant. Any more?
The risk of throwing a spanner in the works. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, by all means.
In the sense of you talked about national park.
Yeah, and it's always a dangerous thing to do.
How can the tourism industry here collaborate together to convince the government to introduce a national park?
Here. I think basically I would simply by saying utilising virtually everything we've talked about in the collaborative thing, because the key thing, which we've all mentioned sort of, is that by collaborating you create a scale that is so big and so powerful that it's very hard even for governments to ignore.
What would you miss if you hadn't got national park designation?
I personally, we wouldn't miss a lot. We would miss, because we put so much work in the 30 years to create what we've created. By the time the national park came along, what the national park has given us, I mean, apart from another layer of bureaucracy, which is a pain in the neck, to be perfectly honest, I have to be frank, because there's a lot of duplication, and that's because our pal from Hull, John Prescott, wanted to give a gift to the nation before he retired, and he didn't want to have the political time to create a tailor-made national park that fitted into the local setting. If we had one of those, I'd be here saying I'm 100% behind it. I was a key supporter of the national park. I did an awful lot of work to create the national park. I don't regret it really, but it's a pain in the neck because we've got 2 levels of bureaucracy, which is not good. But if you could take that out, there are lots of advantages because A, there's another resource coming in. B, for you, the thing that would be great is that the New Forest was always, you know, if anyone knew the New Forest, they assumed it was a national park. The fact that we got it, you know, was good, but people assumed it was a national park. Here, that may not be the case. So in that sense, a national park would be good. But even the one key benefit of having a national park for us is that national parks get put on all of the maps, right? Particularly for overseas visitors. And the one thing about national parks is they're an international brand. So people get it. So in that sense, that's the main attribute. Administratively, it's a pain in the neck, to be honest, if I'm really honest. And I'm being recorded here. So, you know, I'll go home and face the music. But no one would be surprised by what I'm saying. We do work in partnership with them. And what I would also say about collaboration is personalities are really important. If you've got people that want to do stuff, we can do stuff. If you've got people that want to be difficult, they can be difficult. And it doesn't matter how good the policy is. If they want to make it difficult, they can. I think I've probably said too much already on that score, but I think you get the atmosphere of the point I'm making. Someone here was going to say something. No? No? Okay. Sorry. Because I do have a habit of rambling on, as you've probably worked out already. Any other thoughts? We're down to... Are we on time? Anytime you want. Okay. Well, anytime you want. Okay. So one of the things I will say is on the NITB website, my contact details will be on there. There's one thing I want to leave you with. It's a final thought. One of the problems that I, as a destination manager, have faced endlessly is that our website and our businesses are being slowly strangled to death by online travel agencies and Google. And our channels to market are being infiltrated. When I started destination management, there was no internet. There was no online travel agency. When we created our website, we got great traffic and it was all ours. Slowly but surely, our website has still grown, but the amount of business taken from direct bookings by online travel agencies now in England, I think it's the UK, is 65%. And the commissions now, when they started with 3 and 4%, it's now 20%. Now that is dead money for you as businesses. We need to deal with that. And one of the problems is we've all said, oh, big is so powerful, they can do so much, they've got so much money, we can't possibly... No, we can't. We can't fight on their terms. What we can do is work together. And I'm working with Cumbria and Cornwall to create a thing called fairbookinguk.com, which is going to be the ability to compare destination experiences across the nation, create a national platform for destination websites to be compared at an international level, and by doing so, present the economics of visitor happiness to the marketplace, because every visitor, if they knew that they were paying that commission, and if you could do what we're doing with fairbooking.com, which is provide them a load of extra value and a price promise to match that of the online travel agency, they book with you every single time. So fairbooking.com is fairbooking.uk.com, which is not up and running yet, but we hope to launch in June, maybe earlier in May. It's something I'd be very happy to talk to anyone about in terms of getting destinations and individual businesses. We are creating a charter, which is a common sense charter. It's based on the economics of visitor happiness. I leave you with that final thought because that is the ultimate collaboration in dealing with the channels to market. And the one thing, apart from data, that is king our channels to market digitally. Thank you very much indeed.